Welcome to Weapons and Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 212, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/212. You can find the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. And you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. David, listen, bro. No matter how much you hate the media, you don't hate them enough.
You're not doing a good enough job.
Promise you.
You just gotta sit. I sit quietly every night on my couch, just going, and it's still not enough. Still not enough.
You haven't. Listen, until you pop one of those little blood vessels in your eye and stuff like that, then it's not enough. I was explaining
to people, my wife doesn't beat me. I just really don't like the media.
I've been practicing my media hate lately.
I've been practicing my media mantra. All you fuckers should burn in hell. All you fuckers should burn in hell. Anyway.
Yeah. So this week, what we're talking about, kind of our foil for why you should hate the media is twofold. We're talking the second, I guess we're on our third now, if you also count
it's
the
only real
bomb
if you get
found at the rally, but
it only counts if you do it 3 times, right?
We're talking about the second attempted Trump assassination was it this past weekend or did it happen during the week? I think it was the weekend.
Yeah, is the week.
Yeah.
My days are shot. So I think last weekend.
When you're watching this, it will have been a little over a week. So the second Trump assassination, we're going to talk a little bit about that and the media's response to it, predictably atrocious. And then we have a little clip, a little surprise for you. You're going to hate it. It's terrible because it's Hillary Clinton. But she was on MSNBC this week, like not just a few days after Trump
not moments ago
had a second attempt on his life. And she's on Rachel Maddow on MSNBC spewing her same shit. And, it's all Trump's fault, though.
Yeah, of course. We don't, from the side that says you're victim blaming, never victim blame. They sure do a lot of victim blaming nowadays, don't they? Oh, well, I can't say she wore a short skirt and had it coming. But they say he said mean words, so he deserves to die.
To get shot in the head.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It seems like a proportional response. Mean words, insulting rhetoric deserves a bullet, apparently.
From the same side that says silence is
not
violence.
the opinion of WMD Podcast, okay? I want to be clear to that YouTube censors and everybody else. We are not saying he deserves that or anybody else necessarily deserves that, necessarily. But they are, okay? They are repeatedly, and we're going to show you proof of it here later in this episode. So, anyway, so the second assassination attempt. Yeah,
to be honest, Dane, doesn't it seem like they're just so far in it, they just have to keep digging their way to hopefully break through to the other side? Like, I'm going to find China or die trying. Because there's no turning back now.
So that is definitely an insightful point because I can't remember who made this point, but it's absolutely spot on, is they have gone so far with their rhetoric in terms of calling Trump, literally Nazis, also Hitler, the end of democracy. Pick your favorite scare word
while
or term.
Sending funds to actual Nazis while they're calling everyone else Nazis. Let's not forget that.
More on that in a moment. So they have, definitely not minced any words with how over the top they're being about how dangerous Trump is. And so to your point of, are they just trying to push through to the other side? Sometimes the only way to is through, I guess is the motto they're adopting, is once you do that, once you cross that Rubicon, you can never come back, in the sense that even if there's an attempt on his life, and we'll just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're not involved in it or pushing it or happy for it or cheering it on. But once that attempt happens, you can't then say, oh, darn, I'm sad the attempt failed, because what are you saying? That's the whole, would you kill baby Hitler in his bassinet, moral dilemma. You can't say he is Hitler and he's the end of democracy and he's a tyrant in waiting, and then be bummed out if the attempt fails. So they've really backed themselves into a corner where they have to...
From the same side that has the moral high ground, or at least they pretend to.
At all times, right.
Yeah.
So, to your question, yes, they have backed themselves into a corner where they can't express genuine remorse or, when they try to say, oh, that's not what America's about, blah, blah, blah. They can't do that because they've gone too far already.
And again, it's like, how many times do you have to really fail at your job before you start going, maybe I just shouldn't do this anymore? Like, I'm not even going to go back longer than 4 months. They were saying that Biden has it all together. It's just a stutter. His super strength is his age. He's more sharp. You're going to see the best version of Biden. And then he comes out and does what he does. Fine, whatever. And then we go Kamala Harris. She's the least approved vice president ever. But now 2 weeks after the DNC, everyone loves her. And there's so much. She's going to be the best person that's ever done anything. And then also saying that, we need to get rid of Trump because he might use SEAL Team 6 to assassinate his goddamn political adversaries. Meanwhile, over the past couple of months, he's had 2 attempts on his life, maybe 3. So again, if you're a meteorologist, and they're known for not being fucking accurate, these guys are batting 0% for at least 3 months. You're getting fired. You're literally looking at your job. First of all, you're going like this, and the green screen's over here. That's the first part. The second part is you're saying it's gonna have a tornado. We're gonna have a tornado, and it's snowing outside. You're completely way the fuck off. Like, these are different seasons. Like, you're not even in the same ballpark, region, or country, or planet at this point. Well, so if you're still listening to them at this point, you're choosing ignorance.
The problem with your question about, failing and, at what point do you, I guess there's 2 problems, which we've already discussed on this podcast on previous episodes. But the first problem is the capacity for self-reflection. These people don't have it. So it would never even occur to them to ask the question, am I doing a bad job? Therefore, should I step down? No, it's if bad outcomes are happening from my well-laid plans, it's just because those damn deplorables or those stupid rubes didn't follow my plan closely enough. So it's not that I failed, it's that the dummies didn't go along with my plan. So the solution to that is to give me more power, not for me to step down.
If the whole world has an issue, perhaps, just perhaps, the issue might be with you. You might need a mirror or 2. That's all I'm saying on the left. You might need a mirror or 2.
As we've acknowledged before, they don't have that capacity. The second problem, and now that I talked too long on the first problem, I may have forgotten the second one.
Sorry.
The second problem is because you were talking about, them being wrong all the time and batting a 0 and all that kind of stuff, is that presumes that getting it right, so to speak, is the whole modus operandi, and it's not.
Fair point. Yeah.
Right? The whole modus operandi is to propagandize. So, and to that extent, it really actually lies and being wrong. Because sometimes we've asked this question before, right? Like, they're getting so blatant, they can't possibly think that any of us believe it anymore. But when you really think about it, that might be the whole point. Because if they're lying to you continuously and audaciously, and so openly that not even they think that you believe it, the point is, all of those lies to a certain extent eventually become disorienting. And being disoriented is the whole purpose. Because if the population is disoriented about what to believe and what's going on and what's this and why is that connected to that and all of that kind of stuff, they're not going to be able to think in a linear, rational way to call the bullshit when they see it.
Right.
They're too scatterbrained from all the lies. And so, getting truth or getting stuff right or predicting things accurately and all that kind of stuff, that's not part of the program. And that's not a bug, that's a feature.
Right. And to your point, that's why they made such in our opinion, I'm assuming you're going to go with me on this one. That's why they made such a big deal out of January 6th, because they want you to not trust the election. They want you to do that Because when they did it on the right, they're like, oh, the darkest day in American history. They're fighting against democracy. Meanwhile, for the whole 4 years before that, they had said Russia interfered in our election. Is that not election denial? Is that not exactly what they accuse all the people on the right doing nowadays? But this is like when you cheat on your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever friend you have nowadays. I don't even know what the groups are. I don't want to piss anybody off. Fuck. Anyway, whoever you're in a committed relationship with, you cheat on them, and then you come home, and they've burnt your steak that night. It's like, oh, Jesus, Diane, this is what. This is, yeah, I cheated on you, big deal. But you burnt the steak, and that's why I cheated on you, because you burn all the steaks, and that's the thing. And that's why I'm leaving, and that's why you're not a good person, is because you burned steaks. Making way big of a mountain out of a molehill than what you did. So it kind of like eases the tension on you a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely that. And then also, we always say that these people, we say leftist progressives because that's what they predominantly self-identify as, but that's not
regressives.
That's not just, I know, put it this way. I know some personal in my life leftist progressives that don't act the way these elite leftist progressives do. Try saying that 5 times fast.
That's not easy.
So double standards, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we always say these leftist progressives, these elites, they don't have any principles. They don't have any sort of even necessarily motivating ideology, right? At least an actual legitimate Marxists have an ideology that you can trace out.
Principles.
These people don't even have that. These people are very Machiavellian in the sense that it's power for power's sake. That's what they're after. And so when we look at them, when we're saying, God, don't you have any principles? Like, why is everything that you do and say a double standard, to your point about the election interference thing, right? They can say it, but you can't say it because it's a double standard, right?
Correct.
So to the extent that they don't have a motivating ideology other than power for power's sake, pursuing it for its sake, their ideology is, to an extent, double standards and lies and deceit to the nth degree, confusion, chaos. Because again, this is that sort of Hegelian dialectic, right? The Hegelian dialectic operates like this. On one end of the triangle, you have the status quo. On the other bottom base of the triangle, you have a problem that stands opposite. It's the antithesis to the status quo. So you create a problem, and then you, sitting on the top of the triangle, you create the solution to the problem, which then makes you the problem solver, gives you more power, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a constant repeating of this situation. So once you create the solution to the problem, now you've created a new status quo, and then you create another antithesis to that, which is chaos, and then you create the solution to that, and that's how power grows, right? So that's the motivating ideology for these people, if they have one at all. It's the Hegelian dialectic. It is constantly create chaos, sow division and discord, come in and provide an alleged solution to it, which is always give them more power. And then lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, fast forward a few decades and they're just immensely powerful. They're spying on everything you're doing. They're striking podcasts that have, a little over 200 and some subscribers on YouTube. And the next thing you know,
malinformation.
Everybody is caught up in their dragnet. So, it's not, if you think about it for 5 seconds, it's not any shocker for how we got here. But this is how these people operate. So seeing it for what it is, right? Taking all the smoke and mirrors away from it, seeing these people for who they are and how they act will help you see the world clearly. Not that that's necessarily good for your mental health, because the world's pretty screwed up with these people controlling it. But, I guess the first step to recovery is identifying the problem and then doing something to fix it. And, like we always say, politics being downstream of culture, that's when you do in your own lives. And also what we're trying to do with this podcast is you change the culture by winning hearts and minds. So that's what we're after. We know the rest of you sane spacers are after that too. But yeah, the first job is identifying them as the problem and then articulating that to other people to hopefully wake them up and put a stop to it. But
so before we get too verbose in our lead in to this first segment, that's my point. Let's discuss the second Trump assassination attempt.
Yeah, so fortunately, not a whole lot of whoop and wharf to this one. Not a lot of details going on. We'll just kind of glaze over the surface of it. So a guy named Ryan Routh, who allegedly voted for Trump in 2016, but shortly thereafter became disillusioned with him for reasons unknown. Then he started basically regurgitating everything you'll hear from Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow. The Ukraine war is great. Trump is a fascist. He's a Nazi. He's this, that, and whatever. Then, similar to the first Trump would-be assassin, Routh also, despite previous maybe Republican or even Trump in particular support, Routh starts donating to Democratic super PACs. He starts posting all over his social media, which was wiped shortly after the event. Shocker there. Basically, you would be able to, his social media posts were indistinguishable from anything you'd see on MSNBC. And interestingly enough, it was reported early that he also appeared in a BlackRock ad, but that's not correct. That would be just too on the nose, even for these people.
Shit.
Because if you remember the first would-be Trump assassin, he actually did appear in a BlackRock ad. But still in an ad, Ryan Routh appeared in an ad for the Azov Battalion. And if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know that the Azov Battalion is the pro-Nazi, ultra-Ukrainian nationalist arm of the Ukrainian military. They literally have Nazi insignias on their uniforms. And if you don't believe us, just ask the New York Times because we talked about that. Where the New York Times actually...
yeah, we keep receipts, motherfuckers. We can't tell you what episode it was, but it's back there somewhere. You'll find it.
The New York Times kind of, in a kind of a roundabout way said, hey, guys, listen, if we're going to put you in our media, you got to take off the Nazi paraphernalia first. That's not a good look for us. So anyway, Routh, mid-50s, late 50s guy, listless in the world, no purpose. He decides, well, I think I'm going to go over to Ukraine and I'm going to join the Ukrainian military. They, of course, say no because he's just...
this is the same military that's just grabbing like 18-year-olds off the
Anybody
street,
they can
not
get.
letting anybody, anyone.
But
they're
not this
accepting
guy.
anyone. Not you, motherfucker. Get out of here. You're gonna be here.
You're
we only
weird,
want,
bro.
Nobody wants you. Go back home.
So when he couldn't get into the Ukrainian military himself, he started recruiting, and that showed, ended up he was in this Azov Battalion ad. He didn't have a speaking part. It was just a real quick cameo, but there are other interviews with him with like local media over there in Eastern Europe where he's talking about it's super important that people need to join the Ukraine effort. They need to join the Ukrainian military. And basically, like, literally, it's black and white. I think his literal words were, it's black and white. Russia is evil. Ukraine is good. Yada, yada, yada. No sense of nuance.
I'm 5 years old.
Yeah, like, again, when I tell you that it is...
I only like chicky tenders for dinner.
If you
I don't eat any vegetables. I don't like the taste of water.
If you superimpose Rachel Maddow's face on his body, they would be indistinguishable in terms of the words that's coming out of his mouth. So anyway, that's who Routh was. He ended up going to Trump's golf course here in Florida in Palm Beach County and was poking his rifle through the bushes, and a Secret Service agent saw him.
Be quiet. I'm hunting former presidents.
A Secret Service agent, fortunately, since there were no slopey roofs, was paying attention this time and engaged him. I guess fired at him.
This guy, unbelievable.
And he dropped his shit and ran, and they eventually caught him on I-95 and arrested him. But so that's the whole story as far as the assassination attempt itself. But predictably, before we move on to the media's response to this, David, any comments on any of those interesting little tidbits about Ryan Routh and his life?
No.
No,
Because he wasn't interesting enough to comment on.
No.
He failed just as hard assassinating the president as it seems like he did with most
Everything
aspects of
else
his
in
life.
his life.
So I don't know who's telling these guys to do it. I don't know who's ginning him up. But if he's listened to Rachel Maddow, I guess maybe you shouldn't have called all the males toxically masculine and driven away all the people that actually get shit done.
Yeah, that know how to handle a weapon, but
at least. But go ahead, Dane.
Well, no, like his story is, and listen, this is not the slightest amount of sympathy for him because I'm a big fan of the old adage that in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. So for him to be as willfully and intentionally ignorant as he is about everything, that he has such strong feelings about that he's willing to go attempt an assassination of a former president. You can't, I don't have the capacity for sympathy for somebody like that because again, all you have to do is, I'm not even saying you have to come to the same conclusions. I'm saying that when you are given a piece of information that you can just approach it with, I guess to invoke Ronald Reagan, trust but verify, right? Even if you are of the liberal persuasion and, Rachel Maddow is just inherently more credible to you than, anybody on Fox News or whatever, fine. I get that that's your predisposition, but that doesn't mean that you don't use the tools of the internet to at least verify the things that are being said. Try to see for 5 seconds what the other side is saying. So anyway, that's why I don't have any sympathy for him. However, but his life story is incredibly sad. I mean, think about how listless and pointless of a life you have to say, you know what, I'm going to go over to a foreign country and try to join their military and die for a cause that I haven't even taken.
Losing battle, by the way, if you pay any fucking attention to anything else other than CNN and fucking MSNBC.
That I haven't even bothered trying to understand. And then I even get turned down for that. Like, I'm not even good enough for them to throw me into the meat grinder as a bullet sponge. I mean, it really is a sad existence. And I think, we talk about the inflammatory rhetoric of the left, being the cause of a lot of these things. And I think that is true. But I think another part of it, of why these people, these would-be assassins are coming from the left, is because I think that the whole like leftist project really does steal your joy, which is kind of funny because that's what they try to say about the Kamala campaign, in the sense that, like, what are leftist progressives telling all of their followers? They're telling them, you can't do anything without us. We need more power. Trust the experts. Don't ask questions. Don't read anything. Don't do your own research. Just listen to us. Like, that's going to create listless, powerless people.
No one should ever insult you by telling you that you're not good at something. No one can ever tell you that you shouldn't have something. No, you're entitled to everything unless we say so. And then, by the way, we're going to make it so that, or we think that jobs should just be elected on whether or not we think you fit a certain criteria. So we're going to decide who the hell should be hired or not, and who should be valid or not. And then if you don't get selected by them, you're in a group of people that you ardently believe every little word that comes out of them, and they don't think that you're worth the fucking salt on the table that they spilled.
Yeah.
So what? Again, the way you treat your followers or the way you treat your people, like this guy was a lost soul, and all he took is reflection, or all he took was the left's ideology, and look where it got him. Like, whereas maybe if someone in his life had said, hey, I know you feel like a fuck up. Guess what? You are. So maybe you should look into not being a fuck up. Maybe you should change what you're doing instead of just trying to look for new avenues to continue what you're doing. Change course. And if you don't change course, kind of like, the media that we're about to start bringing up, you're going to run into some bad fucking scenarios. Like, I don't know, being a really failed assassination attempt. Maybe missing Trump by this much with another assassination attempt. Like, and again, None of these people are enviable. You wouldn't want to be any of these people. So why do you identify with them? Why would you follow them? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. No, the propaganda is strong. It lionizes and makes heroes out of complete and utter mediocrities. And mediocrities might be overstating it, to the positive for these people. Like, there is nothing remotely impressive about Hillary Clinton. Nothing.
Her body count. Her body count is, but everything else is.
Yeah. So the fact that they almost borderline deify her and that the Rouths of the world eat that stuff up, to David's point, if you looked at it objectively for 5 seconds, you would be like, why am I following this person that's done nothing but sow discord and division and destruction everywhere she goes, who uses her power within the U.S. empire to topple an entire country in Libya, and then just sits there and says, "We came, we saw, he died," and does her little cackle laugh, just like her protege Kamala. Meanwhile, that country just falls into complete disarray to the extent that literal open market slave trading,
which these guys supposedly hate and want to give reparations to every fucking person that may have ever had some melanin in their skin. By the way, on our side,
in 20, I don't remember what exactly year, but I'm pretty sure as of it, even a couple years ago, it was still going on. In the mid to late 2000s, up to where we're at today, you have literal people being sold into slavery, not 150 years ago.
Largest slave trade in all of human history.
But right now that it's happening, and she plays a major role in it and has the nerve to sit there like, we came, we saw, he died. So again, these are not impressive people. Hillary Clinton is not going to, not to, make it only Elon, but like, she's not going to do anything remotely close to inventing something that can take off into space, come back down and land itself.
She's not interested in making your life better.
There's nothing there's nothing she's going to do to raise anybody's standard of living.
Right.
She is going to parasitically enrich herself off the rest of us, but she's not going to be doing anything impressive or particularly noteworthy herself.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Yes. Too much down the rabbit hole on that one. But yes, I think that in addition to the inflammatory rhetoric, the sort of narrative that they give their own side, and by their own side, I mean the Rouths of the world, this sort of powerless, trust the experts, you can't do anything for yourself, don't even try it, and then once you've been propagandized into being completely dependent upon the Hillary Clintons of the world.
You can't do it yourself. You need the system to do it.
Yeah, tracking back to what we were saying earlier about the, power for power's sake and how do you do that? You sow chaos and then create the solution is they've put you in a box to where you're not self-sufficient. And then because they're pursuing power, they create chaos, which, steals the value of your dollar, probably makes you unemployed, makes it harder for you to, do the basic things that, food, clothing, shelter for yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So they've put you in a box where you can't fend for yourself. They've created the chaotic scenario that makes your standard of living worse than it otherwise would be. And in perfect Stockholm Syndrome fashion, you're just running around in a circle praising these people for acting directly against your self-interest. And that spiral downward is not very far to get from where Routh was to doing what he attempted to do. By the way,
people do this on the right too. But it's more prevalent on the left. And that's why we bring it up.
I will say at least there's rhetoric on the right that is, like, for example, if you go into
a logical conclusion.
Yeah, if you go into a group of Democrats and you say something positive, not even trying to convince them, but just say, yeah, I homeschool my kids. yeah, I grow my own food in my backyard, not all of it, but, I have a nice little garden. I'm trying to, grow clean, healthy food for myself. If you even talk about these sort of like self-sufficiency type topics, you're going to be looked at like you got three heads. If you go into a group of conservative people on the right, Republicans, politically speaking, and you say those things, you'll either get oh, cool, man, or whatever. Like they're not going to care, and some of them might cheer you on for it. So that's what I'm saying about this whole dichotomy about self-sufficiency between the two sides. The leftists think that you're kind of a little bit kooky if you're self-sufficient. At least people on the right are just like, way. Yeah, cool for you, not for me kind of thing. But
a leftist will say that the government needs to create a program to help you buy a house. A conservative or a Republican would say, we need to decrease taxes so you have more dollars in your pocket so that you can buy a house more easily. Fair enough?
Yeah. Like at least the consistent ones. Yeah.
I mean, that's a vague
Massey's,
example. Right, exactly. It's a vague example, but it's again, we've gone on too long in this, so that I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that encapsulates it well. So the media, what do they do to this response? Predictable again. Unless you're under a rock.
They held him. They said, we need to stop this rhetoric. We feel bad about this. And we can't have this kind of political stripe to where people are taking shots at our president. And we didn't say that the first time, and we're embarrassed about it. So we're going to double down on this one. And we're going to say, this should never happen again. And we're going to change. So we expect all of you to change. And we can all walk forward as one country, even though we don't agree on everything. That's exactly what they said, Dane. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for about the, 36 to 48 hours max news cycle that they even discussed the second attempt, at least half of that time was filled with pontificating about how, Trump and Vance are really kind of bringing this on themselves. They tied in, they tied, even though Ralph is a, late 50s white guy from North Carolina, they somehow managed to try to tie in the whole discussion about eating dogs and cats in Ohio, by Haitian immigrants, as that's, a cause of why Trump's being, a second assassination attempt, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, like even when they could be bothered to talk about it for longer than a day or two, half of that time was spent blaming the victim, which they're not fans of. Again, double standard. Before. Call it out when you see it.
Short skirt
is blaming Trump and Vance for the repeated attempts. So, and then just a couple days after the second attempt, there was another Trump rally scheduled to take place on Long Island in New York, and there were some explosives found near that site. So the hits just keep on.
We're not even going to count that one. We'll just give that one to them.
Yeah. So he's sitting at 2. They're 0-2.
Technically 3, but. Yeah. Whatever.
And it's going to be his fault all the way through.
But he says mean words, Dane.
Never theirs.
And he makes fun of crippled reporters.
Yeah. Well, again, double standard, because they will tell you that silence is violence, right? In the whole campus protest situation, if you aren't actively anti-racist or actively whatever cause they want you to take up, then just by staying silent on it, you're being violent. But their words, calling him literally Hitler, is somehow not violence. So you're violent for not saying literally anything, and they are not violent for saying the thing that makes somebody want to kill somebody. But try to make sense of it if you can. Don't go crazy trying, though.
Sorry. But anyway.
So,
moving on, champ.
With that being said, we have a little clip here for you. It's a little over a minute. It's a 9-minute interview here between Rachel Maddow and Hillary Clinton. But we're only going to play a minute of it for you because we're going to save you.
She's like a bad fucking penny. She just won't go away, will she?
Having to listen to this person for longer than a minute. So Hillary was on talking about her new memoir. And Rachel Maddow asked a question.
By the way, is Rachel Maddow slowly turning into Jake Tapper?
Yes, but you can only tell them apart by the length of her neck.
Oh God,
Much longer.
Her broader shoulders, apparently.
Yeah. So Maddow asks some sort of question about how does the media hold Trump accountable? How did they hold Trump accountable for getting shot at? That wasn't the exact context of her question, but I just thought that was funny. Considering the timing of this whole thing. And then this is Hillary's response about how the media can do a better job of going after Trump.
I'll save my
You mentioned the press, and sadly, the press is still not able to cover Trump the way that they should. They careen from one outrage to the next. What was outrageous 3 days ago is no longer on the front pages, even though it threatens the physical safety of so many.
The laptop? Oh, is she talking about Trump still?
Cool. Yeah. That's hilarious.
That is hilarious, Dane.
She's a comedian. Levels.
She's fucking...
I'll say my level, and then I'm sure David has one. So she's concerned that the media doesn't stick on a story for longer than a couple days, even though that story threatens people's lives. Was there not a subject matter we were just talking about not only a moment ago about how quickly they moved on from an actual event that was actually targeting somebody's life to be injured or ended? And yet her chief complaint is they don't stick on stories long enough about Trump when last I checked, there's not any Trump supporters running around with guns trying to shoot at the other side or anything like that.
By the way, I'll just tag on to your point, and then let's stick with that. And I think that she's right. She's absolutely right. They don't stick on stories long enough. Especially that story of the guy in Arkansas that definitely committed suicide, even though there was no blood at the scene. He apparently roped himself with an extension cord around a tree and shot himself in the chest and had a little table on under himself. So he hung and shot himself. And he was only tied to the Clintons by knowing them for years and being the person that introduced them to Jeffrey Epstein. I would like that to become, in fact, good, Epstein. I would love to have his murder more covered and to get that flight log. You're right, Hillary. They don't stick on subjects long enough. I'm absolutely in agreement with you.
That put people's lives in danger.
You put a beer in between people and they come to an agreement. I tell you what, this isn't beer, but Jesus Christ, Hillary, I never thought I'd agree with you more so than I do now.
Yeah. So it's just, again, if you're a rational person who is observing this, you're thinking, how can she be so tone deaf, so lacking in self-awareness that she would say something like that literally hours or days at the most,
having done so many things herself?
The media has already forgot about the second assassination attempt in as many months. And how could she say that? But again, come back to what David and I were talking about earlier. It's, sorry, I got the hiccups. I don't know where they came from, but that just adds authenticity to the show. Is because she lacks the capacity for self-examination. She has no self-awareness. That's it. So she just showed it to you. You think David and I are just sitting here pulling stuff out of our where, just making stuff up to castigate these people? No, they will show you repeatedly if you just listen to them long enough.
And by the way, that's just off the top of my head. We all know I don't do any research or prep work for this fucking show. So that's just off the top of my head of just, what she's done over the past couple of years. Let's not bring up, anything else.
Yeah, David is heavily relying on me for the research for the show. So. I know that comes as a surprise to literally none of you.
Talented but lazy.
So, all right. So we're going to let the lizard lady continue.
People, particularly as you point out, immigrants that he and Vance have decided to demonize. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is.
Take it away.
What about all those social media posts that have like one broadcast, like one local broadcast saying some of these stories have been maliciously and we need to walk out, and then it goes to 2, then it goes to 3, And then, but eventually by the end of it, they're all saying the exact same rhetoric on over 50 channels.
Yeah.
And they don't have cohesiveness.
They're consistent narrative. Yeah.
Consistent narratives. Consistent narratives like, January 6th was Trump's fault. When we have a video now of Pelosi saying that she definitely refused the National Guard when Trump gave it to her. But no, we're going to stay on topic. We're definitely going to stay. Is it kind of like you stayed on topic that he was a Russian surrogate or he's a Russian Manchurian candidate because you lost the election? Is it kind of staying on narrative that the Clinton Foundation afforded the FBI all the funds to investigate a political candidate? Is that staying on narrative? Saying that for the better part of, 8 years now, Dane?
Yeah.
Still denying the 2016 election while you shit on people that deny the 2020 election? Got it.
Again, I don't know.
If there's one superpower they have, it's that. That's all I'm saying, Dave. Sorry, excuse me.
I don't know what world these people live in to say things like that, other than, the other explanation for how she can be so completely out of touch and lie so audaciously is that's the point. Lie often and lie in a way that makes no sense to anybody why you would even do it in light of reality, and you will disorient people. And that's exactly what it is. Because nobody that's been even remotely paying attention for the last 8 years believes that the media doesn't have a consistent narrative about Trump, that he is a threat to democracy, literally Hitler, the worst president in American history, incited a riot on January 6th. Just go down the list, right? Russian, Manchurian candidate, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty consistent, pretty damning, and pretty over the top for 8 years. And then it manifests into assassination attempts. And she says that they're not doing a good enough job at it. So,
speaking of which, if they're not staying on brand, what the fuck are you still doing here, Hillary? You've been dead and gone. Well, not politically dead and gone for the better part of 8 years that I mentioned. How are you still a mouthpiece? Why do they still keep bringing you back? They had Tulsi Gabbard, but because she wouldn't bend the knee to you, that was a woman of color, educated leader. We can go down the list. And guess what? If she was running in this election, you guys would win by a landslide. A fucking landslide. But because they wouldn't play your game, you kicked her out of the Democratic Party. You guys get what you fucking deserve. And if you want Hillary, enjoy.
Yep.
Late, great journalist Harry Evans, one time said that, journalists should, really try to achieve objectivity. And by that, he said, I mean, they should cover the object. Well, the object in this case is Donald Trump, his demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world, and stick with it.
Has his side taken 2 shots at Harris? Speaking of danger to the world and all that?
So that whole line right there towards the end about Trump being an object. And I know, her people are going to say, she's quoting from somebody else and blah, blah, blah. But no, don't let them get away with that cop out, because what she just said there, she just gave away the whole game. Okay. She views people like objects. Trump is an object. You're an object.
Gaddafi.
And objects are, by definition, intended to be manipulated, to be used for whatever the purpose of the user of the object is, right? But human beings are not objects. Human beings are subjects that are ends in and of themselves. You don't use human beings to get what you want out of them. You're
not supposed to, at least.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
If you can, but you're not supposed to.
If you're a decent non-lizard person, you see human beings as the unique souls that they are ends in and of themselves.
Flawed, and perfectly flawed.
And that you work with them to the extent that you can, to reach goals that benefit both of you. But if somebody doesn't want to work with you or doesn't want to do what you want them to do, that's where you leave it. And if you view people as subjects as opposed to objects, you'll be more inclined to do that. But that's not how Hillary views it. And that's not how any of the lizard people in DC view it. We are all objects for their infinitely moldable clay to do with us what they will, results and impacts on our lives be damned, as long as they get more power. So, that right there is everything. That 10-second quote is who Hillary is at her core. She views people as objects, and she will use them to whatever she needs to do to get and retain her power.
Well, again, they bring up the moral high ground all the time, and that's where they feel like they are, and that gives them the right to do whatever the fuck that they want to do. But you know what? A truly moral person does most of the time, or has a capacity of, is humility. Being able to admit when they're wrong. Being able to course adjust when they find themselves at fault. Mm-hmm. And again, if you need any more, literally trying to kill somebody that they don't agree with isn't enough for them to fall from the moral high ground that they so desperately cling to and say that they have, then look no further than the actions that they have, or the response that they have to all these things. They never course correct. They never look at their own ass and say, yeah, maybe we should have let somebody else run instead of kicking people out of the way and letting Hillary Clinton run. Like, no course correction to say, like, the rhetoric that we've been ginning up for the last 4 years has actually been more harmful to this country than people saying that a certain medical procedure you should have the choice to have because it's your right. That might have had, their viewpoint might have had more of an effect on this country than people having that opinion of that medical procedure. I hope I danced around that issue enough for us to get struck on that one. Again, to get struck for saying things that have been proven right while they're still spewing rhetoric that makes deranged people want to take a crack at him, take a crack at Trump with a gun. And then, by the way, to course correct again, I believe you mentioned pre-roll that this guy had several gun offenses on his record as well. And if the system worked like they claimed it does, despite the fact that in one aspect they say you don't need a gun, and in the other aspect they say, well, the people that we employ as a government to protect you, we need to defund. Again, conflicting ideology there, no self-reflection. Hypocrisy abounds, and I don't, they are either going to have, and I guess the only solace that we have really is that it is a dying art. The media that we have come to know as the predominant word of reason, logic, and facts has died, and it's dying a slow death right in front of everybody. And all they need to do, it's the simplest thing. You need to get better the same way you got sick. You need to start eating crow and telling the truth. But they're not going to do that. So they're willing to die on the same poison that they're just injecting into their arm every day, hoping that that poison eventually fights off the poison that they already have, which is not going to do. So they're dying a slow, miserable death. And hopefully, they don't take this country and our democracy along with it.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks, buddy.
And I probably shouldn't be saying anything more because...
Buddy, you get more cute when you're hiccuping a little bit.
I can't talk for longer than 3 to 5 seconds about hiccuping.
Our audio editing guy is going to have a hell of a time this week.
Do you want to do the outro ramble,
no,
David?
No, I don't. I want you to do it because it's more on point, and you have it down so well. It sounds so much better in your words. I know.
Have I told you lately how much I hate you?
Have I told you lately that I hate you? No.
David, is there anything in your personal life you want to tell the Sane Spacers, or are we keeping that close to the vest?
Well, we're keeping that close to the vest. Keeping that close to the vest. But let's just say we'll do a little subtle thing. Let's just say that one of us added another member to their family this week, and that might be why he was so bloodshot in the eyes, because one of us might be on probably a medically unsafe amount of caffeine right now. So hopefully this episode isn't too bad with the crack-addled co-host with a co-host that's hiccuping.
Well, hey, listen, okay? If we can't defeat them at their own game, we'll just overwhelm them by strength of numbers. So
we're gonna have to start get cracking then. Good God.
Yeah. So anyway, so that is gonna do it for episode 112, which you can 112. Whew. All right.
By about 100. It's all right.
212. Episode 212 of WMD Podcast, which can be found at WMDpodcast.com. You can /212. You can find the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. I think David skirted around the medical procedure issue well enough that we'll be able to keep this one up on YouTube. Who knows? But if
again,
not,
holding us accountable for our rhetoric, but not them.
And you're a YouTube subscriber, make sure you're also subscribed over at Rumble, Odyssey, and or X.
You're so cute. So don't think about it. Just keep firing.
It has nothing to do with thinking. This is an automatic thing. Okay. So that is where was I at?
That's what she said.
Yeah. So link up with us on our other socials: X, Instagram, TikTok. Private members only Facebook page of $5 a month or more of support. Go to WMDpodcast.com, the support our work tab to figure out how to do that. While you're over there, join the email list so you can always stay in contact with the show. And with that being said, we'll see you all next week on 213. We love you.
Hope we're all still here.
I'm not saying any more things, so you can stop hearing me hiccup. David, sign us out. All right.
Well, you know the rules. They know the rules. Stay safe, guys, but more importantly, stay free.